Hello to the chicos and the chicas. Today I am coming at you with a very basic yet, in my opinion, super important video in which I'm going to break down and explain the core concept of the Queen's Gambit type of pawn tensions, because based on my experience of 20 years coaching, there's a ginormous gap in the knowledge of a lot of club players and adult improvers. So without further ado, let's jump into this pawn tension with d4, d5 and pawn c4. Now, a lot of players who actually play the Queen's Gambit with white don't know why they play this move. Very often I find that I ask people when they present the game to me when they play his c4, and I go like, by the way, what's the purpose of c4? And they go like, what do you mean? Like Queen's Gambit theory, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, I get that. What's the point? And there is no clear vision as to why we are playing c4. So let me break that down first, because this is very important. So the idea with c4, and this is the best approach to actually figure out what it is all about, is that we want to take on d5. And by doing so, we actually would like to eliminate these pawns. So in an optimal world, we want the pawn structure. Actually, no, I'm going to do something different. Watch this. So what we want is this pawn structure. Basically, I'll just remove these two without putting any pieces in their places. That's what we want. Now, second question, why? The reason why is because now we managed to trade a side center pawn, not a central pawn on ED, but on the side of the center, for a central one. And what that means is that now we have access to build a complete pawn center. And that is the purpose of c4. Now, additionally to that, we are also trying to lure the black pawn away, so that again, we can build a pawn center and then regain the pawn. This is the reason why the two main opening theoretical moves here are e6 and c6, because both of these moves allow black a recapture on d5 with the pawn, thus retaining the center with a pawn. And I'm pretty sure that by now many of you go like, aha. And I hope that that is the case, because I really want to cause a fair few aha moments with this video. So for this reason, you will find, and DC, by the way, is a fine move for the record, because here e4, yeah, it's very, very big theory. Black has got e5 here, which is a typical counterpunch to immediately challenge the center. So the three best moves for black here, hands down, are e6, c6, and takes. And they are all revolving around the concept of trying to retain the center, because DC also, by the way, is going to lead to positions where black is going to try to do the same story, playing c5 to trade the c4 to d, trying to fight for equality. Now, a very great way to demonstrate this point, a spectacular example is knight f6. And at this point, I really want you to work with me on the stats, and you will see why I'm making this video. I'm going to go full screen size now, so that you are going to see the stats on the right. Knight f6 fails to understand fundamentally the very basic idea of the Queen's Gambit pawn tension, and allows white to take on d5 and destroy the pawn center and expand with e4. Now, knight f6, of course, is played in the vast majority of the cases, because it seems like a transition into the Queen's Gambit decline, e6, knight c3, knight f6, the correct move order for black. And black just goes like, meh, whatever, theory, knight f6, knight c3, e6, and we transition. And now comes the first shock that demonstrates that this lesson was not taught to the vast majority of people. Look what the most popular move is after knight f6 down here, by nautical miles ahead of everything else. Knight c3, as per it was indicated by the arrow. 2.5 million games continued with knight c3, and hardly more than 1 million went with c takes d5. Now, for the sake of accuracy, I would like to point out to you here that after knight takes d5, the immediate e4 is actually a mistake, because after knight f6, knight c3, e5 again is quite a frustrating counterpunch, although even here knight f3 is allowing white to clearly fight for an advantage. I should perhaps call this not a mistake but an inaccuracy, and instead knight f3 first followed by e4 is going to grab a huge advantage to white and the dominant center. So right here you can already see that people who play the Queen's Gambit regularly fail to exploit this mistake by not understanding the opening they play. They memorize the opening, so they know after knight c3 e6 is the Queen's Gambit declined, and they blindly go into it without understanding the number one core idea, which is to trade these pawns and grab the center. That is just absolutely mind-blowing that is how many games go wrong from white's point of view, despite playing to this very plan. Now, the whole reason why the idea of making this video occurred to me, because this happens on the lot on the black side as well. So let's see what I'm talking about there. There are a number of black openings, or rather I should say openings from black's point of view in a d4 openings, where white does not play c4. So let's kick off with knight f3, knight f6, and for argument's sake, let's have a look at the London. And to your greatest surprise, there will be zero London bashing here whatsoever. What do we immediately do if we would like to challenge this setup? We go c5. And tada! The concept again is the exact same. To trade this for this in a way where white can't retake with a pawn, so that then we can grab the center. And again, for the very reason, the best two moves for white here are e3 and c3, securing the d4 pawn. The other day I had a lesson with a student who in this position, as black had g3 played against him, which is still a fine move. I believe, by the way, it is part of one of Chess Explained's main white repertoires. And after c5, we got bishop g2, and again, interestingly enough, our student or our friend, he did not play c takes d4, by far the best move. And again, look at the stats. Look at the stats. Top move, as in by far the most played move here, is knight c6. And knight c6 right away tells me that there are 52,000 people who don't understand why they played c5 in the first place. Because after knight c6, we are actually going to either transition into the Catalan with castles e6 and c4, which is hardly great news given how we started off, or we are going to transition into some kind of a reverse Grunfeld. And considering that the Grunfeld has quite a bit of a bite, even with black, I would be very reluctant to engage with this. The engine will tell you that this is totally fine for black, although plus 0.3. So yeah, you already get the point that we let them off the hook. And in fact, again, the correct policy is to ask yourself, why are we playing c5 in the first place? It is because we want to destroy this pawn on d4 to get access to e5. And that's not to say, by the way, that Chess Explains repertoire is not good. It is great. But this is the actual thematic move, and this is how one should play with black. We played c5 so that if they ignore it, we take on d4 and we fight for e5. And the examples never end. Like one of my favorite is, and I don't know, I haven't checked, so I might get burnt here with the stats, but I'm going to go out on a limb here. Take this example. There is this very famous structure slash setup from white's point of view in the queen's pawn opening, let's call it that. When we play bishop d3, they play yada yada yada, we castle, they castle, we play b3, we put the bishop here and we put the knight here. The vast majority of you watching this video would have seen something like this from white, and then they dream about a kingside attack with knight e5, f4, queen f3, maybe even g4, g5, blah blah blah. Yeah, so let's go back to the black side of the business. So let's go knight f3, let's go knight f6, and now I'm going to say let's go b3, because I would like to play that setup that I just showed you, but I'm going on a weird move order. As you can see, there have been 45,000 games for this. c5 was only played as third most popular move. So we are already dropping the ball here with black big time, but that's not even my point, because my point is that I bet that after c5, if I play not e3 or c3 with white, the most popular move for black, so let's say c5 bishop b2, total nonsense, I am placing a bet now that the most popular move is not going to be c takes d4, which is by far the most topical, the purpose of c5, and therefore the whole core idea of what we are doing as black. Let's have a look. Am I going to lose a bet? More than likely. So we go c5. Actually, the most popular move in the database by white is bishop b2, betraying absolutely zero understanding of central concepts. So now comes the second bet. I mean, that's a shock. Obviously, e3 needs to be played here, or take on c5 and then try to recuperate the center with a later c4. So let's see bishop b2. And here we go. Most popular move, knight c6. Once again, entirely betraying the concept of c5, which was to trade and then grab the center. And black is already like, look at that, minus 1.3. So this is why I think that this video hopefully will hit real hard, because a lot of people go in completely automated auto mode or autopilot when they play like, oh yeah, b3, they go like, oh yeah, white just wants to go into that e3 bishop d3 theory. And this theory here is the word that is really killing it, by the way. And they go like, oh yeah, so I will just play c5, yeah, I will play knight c6, I'll play bishop g4, and then we are in that setup that I know for black. Absolutely not thinking, not critiquing white's setup, not thinking about the move order change, and in particular not thinking about the meaning of our moves, just going down total tunnel vision on, oh yeah, I know, this is theory. Yep, except they did not play into your theory, they played something far worse, and we did not demonstrate any understanding of why we are doing what we are doing, any concept about trying to punish a faulty move order, and just in general, free thinking about, what is going on here? Like, they don't seem to be fighting for the center with pawns at all. Can't I grab that opportunity, take it from there? Yeah. So this was a very brief but hopefully powerful presentation that this d4 c5 or reverse d4 d5 c4 tension is not something that we just do because it has been done for 200 years. It has a purpose, and you need to understand what that purpose is. And once the purpose is understood, you will be much better placed in your game in terms of how to continue if something weird happens, and how to react when, usual moves are being played. So that is going to be it. I am going to continue, by the way, this kind of explanation, partly because of a request that I received on Twitter. So the follow-up video to this will be when we are going to discuss when to play e3 and when to play e4 in these Queen's Gambit setups, where white is actually allowed to go all the way in the center. I hope you found this very useful. I recommend you that take a very good look at this video and think about the things I showed you to make sure that you process and understand how this tension works, so that you are not going to fall victim of these autopilot moves that disallow you to exploit your opponent's potential mistakes. Thank you very much for tuning in and watching this video. Please don't forget to like, to sub, to comment, perhaps even to super like, and I'm going to see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.